Hi, this is Courtney, and I wanted to do a quick video blog or a vlog, I guess is what they're called now, on resourcefulness. And this has come up a lot lately. Jim and I were having this conversation last night. So, first, I'm just going to ask a question and then answer it. So, what is resourcefulness? Well, resourcefulness is finding a way to do things when it's hard and when things are not easy. That's what I define resourcefulness as. I'm not sure what Webster's would agree. I did look it up, and it's basically the same thing. So it means that you don't have necessarily the means. Like, let's say that your car breaks down and you don't have $10,000 to go buy a good used car. So you find a way to get the car working. Maybe you barter your services for car repair, and that didn't come out right, did it? Maybe, for instance, let's say Jim's a roofer, so maybe Jim does a roof repair, or we give a discount on a roof in exchange for car repair. So it's finding a way to get things done when things aren't necessarily easy. It's also about the kind of planning for a rainy day. And so, we often think of resourcefulness is, money, and that is true, but money is not emotions. And I think a lot of times we tie money with emotion, because the fact is, money doesn't just spend itself. Emotions are how we spend money. And so we have money, and if we're tired, let's say we're tired and we get off work, we might go out to eat instead of eating at home, and that might cost a lot of money. That's not bad necessarily, but done often, if it makes you broke, it becomes a problem. I'll give you an example of my own life recently. We've moved out here to the cabin, to the farm. We have the house in town for sale, and that's cost a lot of money to keep up. And we've decided not to rent it at this time. But I was continuing to work nights to help pay and offset some of that cost. And this little side job I have at night was, making me enough to pay the utilities a month on that place. Well, now that we've moved out here, that day, Monday, I went to work, and I went to Benton from here, which is about 30 minutes, and back. And then I shoveled in something really quickly to eat, and I drove to that job in Hot Springs, which was another 30 minutes, and I didn't go back because I was starving. So when I got off work, I went and I spent all the money I made on that class to buy us dinner. And Jim also drove to town. So I ended up spending and realizing I just spent all the money I made eating out and on gas. And couldn't I have done something at home to save that money and been happier? Now, don't get me wrong, I love my work. It makes me sad to not be there. I gave up teaching public classes this week because it's not just the money, but I was ragged and I was weary, and I was giving of myself after I had already taught at the heart clinic. So I was, though it exhilarates me to teach, I wasn't taking care of myself, and I was suffering financially, emotionally, physically, because I didn't have time to take my own yoga class. I didn't have time to go work out. I didn't have time to eat a healthy meal. I ate something covered in cheese and probably tortilla chips, So that's one example of resourcefulness. I'd like to give some more examples of resourcefulness and what it means to me. Emotional resourcefulness as well as financial resourcefulness. Just like we save money for when we don't have it for a rainy day. And man, if I could just get people to understand this and listen, I'm not perfect. I have learned this because of hard freaking lessons. I have been in debt. I have been living on credit cards before. I have been in some pretty dire freaking situations, working multiple jobs to take care of kids. But I've learned some really good lessons about, oh my gosh, it's been 17 years now. maybe 12 years. In 2000, in 2000, my ex-husband and I built a house, and that was when the loans were being given, and you could buy they'd give you ridiculous amounts of money to build houses, and we were making $30,000 a year, and they loaned us money to build a $200,000 house. I mean, with 4 kids, and we weren't smart enough to know any better, and so we knew enough to know. We didn't know enough to know that we didn't know what we were doing. And anyways, we got in over our heads, and I was having to use credit cards to buy food, and it was so freaking sad. And someone said to me, "You're house poor," and I was like, "That's it. We are house poor." And long story short, I went to the library. I found books by Larry Burkett, and eventually got on the Dave Ramsey plan. We sold the freaking house. I got a second job. I was teaching part-time, and then I got another job at a health food store. And within 3 years, we had cleaned all that mess up, and we were doing so much better. Things get better and better and better. I won't go into my personal life, but there was always some financial struggle there in my marriage. I get divorced, and of course there's the financial struggle of being a single mother. That was really hard, but resourcefully, I knew how to save, and I knew how to stretch a buck, and I knew how to work hard. So we ate a lot of peanut butter and a lot of scrambled eggs that first year. And that first year, I spent $200 on Christmas, which was a stretch for me. And now, I probably spend that on per kid, not quite. Well, yeah, probably. But my kids really appreciate it now. I don't know that they did back then, but I remember that first Christmas, I could only spend like $50 on each kid. And, but the thing is, I had taught myself through, my reading and education, self-education, and my history being raised by Depression era grandparents, and my dad and stepmom were super frugal. My stepmom and my grandma both taught me how to manage money, that I was able to survive all those years of single motherhood. Yes, I did have child support, and I had some alimony, but even with that and my job, I was still making the equivalent of a school teacher's salary. And raising 4 kids by myself. So, that was financial resourcefulness. Emotional resourcefulness is when you meditate and you study positive psychology. You constantly read positive things. Maybe you go to church, you have your faith, whatever it is. It could be anything for you. It could be a support group. It could be, but it's training your mind. It's training your mind that when you get sad or depressed or something really bad in your life happens, that you can sit back and say, okay, I'm going to look at myself in third person here. Okay, Courtney, so I'll often do this. I will talk to myself in my mind in third person and say, Courtney, this is temporary. Courtney, this isn't going to last forever. And I'll say, you're brave, you're courageous, you're smart. I will talk to myself like I would talk to my best friend. Yeah, maybe, or sometimes if I screw up, you made a mistake, but it's not something you can't overcome. That you should have made a different decision, but now you'll know better next time. And so it's not like it's easy for me. I've struggled with self-esteem issues, self-image issues, worry, anxiety, depression, clinic depression. Like, I've been treated medically for all of those things, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. I think that's part of the problem we have in our society is if you're treated for anxiety or depression, so many people don't want to admit that. It's through that I have become the person I am. It's through that vulnerability and that weakness that we become those strong, courageous people. It's not because life is freaking easy. If life was easy, you would never be brave or courageous, because you just wouldn't have to be. So I hope this has been helpful on resourcefulness, and it's something that now that life, I hope, is going to wind down for me, especially hoping I sell that house, um, that I can go back and put together the many hundreds of essays I've written on the subject, and hopefully work on this lost art, because I think it's one thing in our society that we could really use. Seth Godin wrote a post yesterday, and I'll end with this. It said, waste is the new luxury, and that now it has become luxurious to be wasteful. And I thought about that, and I'm like, that is freaking true. That is so sad, but it is true. We have become such a wasteful society, and is that really being a good steward of what we've been given? As a country, we are the wealthiest people on earth, and you know, I don't know that we're up there right now as the wealthiest, but we are. If you have a screen and you're looking at this, you're in the top 25% for sure, because 75% of the world is living on $2 a day or less. And if anything at all, that should make you give thanks for everything you've been given. So, and that's really the key: perspective and thanks. For me, that's been my experience. All right, take care and Merry Christmas.